Hey guys, wanted to show you a little bit of what we're working on. We've got a window here from the Wild Wild West that we need to pull apart. We need to put a new style on. So we'll go over all the anatomy here in a second. But to start with these sliding windows, we have an active panel. That's going to be your panel that moves. We've got your passive panel. So we need to be able to get this passive panel out because that is holding our active panel in right here. We've got two L brackets, top and bottom, that are going to be holding this in place. So we'll pull the two sets of screws, top and bottom, be able to slide this over, pull it out of the opening. Then we'll be able to pull this guy out of the opening, set it up on the inside. All right, so got my impact right here. First one's going to be two self-tapping screws. Set these off to the side right here because we'll be using these again when we button this all back up. Got 4 screws up top. Losing screws already. One more. Oh. Looks like they over-drilled that one. All right, so both brackets are off. Then we'll show you at the end a little something we can do to help with the security of these windows. So this passive panel doesn't have any rollers on it. We're just gonna pull it over. Then the way these are set is they have extra room in the head for us to go up and then be able to lift it out. So. And then we'll take this to the inside, set this against the wall, and we'll come back to the next one. All right, time for our active panel. So now we've got this guy on our sawhorses. Real quick, we'll be going over or show you some of the anatomy real quick with this thing. On the sides, these are called our stiles. Bottom and top, these are our rails. The way I remember it is the train rolls on the railroad tracks, those are on the ground, so that's my top and bottom. These two are stiles, like I said, and that is what we're going to be replacing today. We had a little issue with this, so we're going to be switching it out with this new guy right here. Now, to be able to pull the old one off and put the new one on, we're going to pull this plug right here. We've got a couple screws inside here that we're going to be getting to, but before that, we need to be able to pull this plate right here on the bottom. We've got 2 Phillips head screws that we'll be removing, pulling this back, pulling this off. Then we have 1 screw up in the head that is hidden behind this little plug right here. So we'll be able to pop this guy out, Got our Phillips head screw right there. A lot of these window and door manufacturers use stainless steel screws, so it's important to be using wax when you retighten down any screws. So we've got our tube wax from one of our suppliers here in Arizona that we'll be using when we reattach all of this. So, like I said, it's going to start with bottom two Phillips head screws. I'm going to be saving all my screws because we're going to need them when we reattach the new one. So this is held off to the side, held on by our bottom vinyl. Now we're going to move on to the screws inside here. For a larger slider, you might find 3 screws in here. Since this one is nice and small, we're going to be looking at 2. I've got one that is going to hold my frame together, and then I've got one screw that will hold my wheel into my style. Alright, both screws are pulled. One of the important things to note on this, depending on what parts they send you, you will need this little bracket. That's what our 2 screws from this bottom piece right here attach into. So we're going to set this off to the side because we're going to need that. Sometimes they get stuck in there because the manufacturers use the wax, so it's just something to pay attention to. Alright, coming up to the top, we've got our 1 screw up top. I'm going to grab my screw out here. Now, one of the things that we'll do is we'll take a mallet and a block. If you have a nylon block, you can use a wood one. Just pay attention to the texture or if there's any splintering on your wood block. In this case, I'm going to try and set it on the seam of my window right here. Just start tapping, keep that knee right there just to make sure it doesn't come crashing on the floor. I want to create a little relief right there, and then I'm going to pull this style off. Set this off to the side. It should be done with this. Alright, so now you've got your rubber gasket that goes all the way around your glass. This is tempered glass, so it is stronger. It will shatter into 1,000 pieces if we were to hit the corner nice and hard. If you did want to pull this whole thing apart and replace the glass, if you had broken glass or a defect in your glass, you would go through and do the same thing to the other side. You'd pull your 2 screws over here. If it was a larger door or panel, you'd be pulling 3 screws, and then you'd have your 1 screw up top, be able to pull all the pieces off, pull your rubber off, and then be able to work in reverse order with your new glass. So, rubber boot is seated back on. We have our new style, and we're going to be resetting onto the window. One of the things to pay attention to is where your rubber boot attaches. You want to make sure that there's no light gap up in the corner. Pull that apart, do that again. So, making sure that there's contact. And then do be careful because you do have glass that is still exposed beyond that rubber right there. So if you do make contact with the wrong area, you can break your glass. So now that that is on there, I'm going to start with my top screw. Like I said, we want to use a little wax. And since these are stainless screws, they will not be magnetic. So I'm going to dip a little bit or dab a little bit of wax onto the end of my impact, and it helps create a little bit of a magnetic effect. So we'll go in there, screw goes right in the top. We want to be very careful with stainless steel screws about not over tightening them. The wax really helps to make sure that you don't break them, but it is something you have to pay attention to, so don't get too over ambitious and really start cranking on your impact. We'll come down to the bottom. We're going to repeat again. We've got our screw for the bottom, give it a little wax. Make sure we've got wax on our impact, and then we'll set this one as well. With this, Since this new style has a lower handle, I will have to pull it. These handles are pretty easy to take off and put back on, which is really nice. 2 screws, pop it right out, set it off to the side, and we're right back. There. One of the things to pay attention to is making sure that your rail is right in the groove with your style. Every once in a while, the style will be cockeyed down a little bit and you won't be able to suck it as tight, and then it will mess with your alignment. So making sure that this is in the right position before you start tightening this down. Alright, and like we said, we don't want to get too over ambitious with tightening that down because it is a stainless steel screw. Down a little bit of wax on the top of this guy. Now we've got this piece where we need to make sure that it lines up north-south, I guess, with this window so that when we reattach our bottom piece right here, the screws are seating into the proper channel. So, machine screw goes through there. This will then bring our wheel housing back into making sure that that bracket is straight up and down. Then we can reattach our bottom piece. So here, there are 2 screws. Some wax on that bad boy. Now all that's left to do is put this handle back on, put our buttons back in, and we'll be throwing everything back in the opening. One of the things that I like to do when I'm dealing with these locks is making sure that the lock position is always when this is pushed up. Some people are worried that this lock might drop and lock them out. There is enough tension that if it is installed to where when it is down, this is your lock position, this should never happen, but we like to just put everyone's mind at ease by making sure our lock position is in the up position. So, set this back in here, drop it in, unlocked. Reset our 2 screws. You want to be very careful if you're doing this. I wouldn't recommend usually doing this with an impact. Phillips head screwdriver will be your best bet just because you don't want to over tighten and then strip it out and now your lock is going to be wiggling around. Alright, everything is nice and tight, making sure our rubber is all reset. We get our tools, material off here. Now we've got our rubber bumper that will go back in the side over here. They're just tension fit in there. Don't even know. Cool. This one. Alright, there we go. I'm going to pull this sticker right here, so we don't have to worry about it later. We leave the plastic that is on the glass throughout an entire project. This will be one of the last things that comes off. We want it to be the very minimal damage can happen to our glass along the way. It's a huge hassle for the builders, it's a huge hassle for us, as well as the manufacturers if any glass gets damaged during the construction process. We've got a lot of people working on the inside and outside, and most of these windows go in right after framing. Take her on out. Oh, I'm going the wrong way, huh? Alright. Now that I installed it correctly, we're back on the right track. Let's go grab our stationary panel. Track is clear of debris. And we're back in position. We'll reset our top and bottom bracket, and then basically at that point we're good to go. I want to show you guys something real quickly that is for security. We just showed basically everyone who would pay attention to this video that if you were to pull the top bottom bracket, you could slide this panel over, and if you wanted to, you could climb into someone's house. There is a trick that a lot of installers will use to make sure that there is added security. They'll take a self-tapping screw and run it through the frame into the stile of our window right here. They'll do it from the inside, so you would not be able to pull the two brackets and then slide this window over. So if I didn't knock both of my brackets down, we'll reattach those right now, go to the inside, and we'll show you guys what we're talking about with that. Let's run around to the inside. We got two pan head screws. They're about 1.25 inches, self-tappers. We're gonna paint the heads black because our frame is black, so it'll all blend in. No one will be able to see it in the end. But just like we said, it adds that security, that peace of mind for everyone who's living here. No, it's a little dark in here. 1, 2. One of the things to pay attention to is when you are using these screws to not, with these frames, they do take care to make sure that they put the brackets usually in the correct spot so you won't have any screws going into your glass. But we have seen it before from security people or anyone who's just working around the window. If they put too long of a screw into the frame, sometimes you do puncture the glass. Top bracket. Ooh, almost lost it. We're going to send our screws, like we said, from the frame into this panel right here. So, nice part is these are self-tappers. We're going to do one down low. We'll do one up high. First one. And I'm going to move my step ladder. So, now we have both the screws in there. We have touch-up pens that we use with an oil-based paint to darken those heads so that whoever's going to be taking a shower, just in the bathroom in general, won't be seeing something that looks like it doesn't belong. So, everything will be nice and black. There is a bumper up here as well that prevents, if your screw is sticking just a little proud, this panel won't hit it because that bumper does limit how far back this active panel can go. Another way to do this would be to spray paint some screws ahead of time. You can do that if you don't want to get some paint or even a paint pen. Might be a little bit easier to do that way. All right, well, let's step them out of here. Alright guys, so we just went through replacing the style is basically the same thing as far as if we were to do it on a slider that's this big. We have our caps down at the bottom, both sides. We've got our single screw at the top. It'd be a matter of you need two people to take the panel off, set it on 2, possibly 4 sawhorses depending on the weight and size. You'll pull your screws, style, rail comes off, you've got your rubber boot, and then you'll be able to get to your glass if need be. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I want to say thank you to Joseph Morris behind the camera and helping me out. If you guys liked the video, if you found it helpful, please like the video. Hope you have a great day.